published 1300 est, the 27th of November 2017, updated 1306 est, the 27th of November 2017. England's cricketers have been hit with a midnight curfew on their tour of Australia after Johnny Bairstow's bizarre headbutt on Cameron Bancroft, with Ben Stokes' Bristol brawl still in the hands of Avon and Somerset police. ECB Director of Cricket Andrew Strauss insisted the players were not thugs, but informed them of his decision at a sombre team meeting only hours after England had lost the first test at the Gabba by 10 wickets. It is understood that not everyone was thrilled with a ruling that essentially punished the whole team because of the behaviour of one man. But Strauss felt he had no option, and urged the squad to be smarter as the Ashes tour threatened to unravel almost before it had begun. England have imposed a curfew after Johnny Bairstow's headbutt on Cameron Bancroft. Bairstow shakes hands with Australia's opener after the host won by 10 wickets at the Gabba. That followed an exasperated performance from England coach Trevor Bayliss, who claimed the incident, which took place in Perth on the first night of the tour, had been blown out of proportion, but said his players would be extra dumb and stupid if they didn't examine the behaviour. Bancroft himself was all comic timing as he explained his surprise at Bairstow's greeting in the Avenue bar on October 29. "It was just really weird," he said. "It was so random, and I certainly didn't expect it coming. A handshake or a hug would have been something that I probably expected more than a headbutt," and Australian captain Steve Smith, who could barely control his laughter, admitted his team used the episode to get under Bairstow's skin during England's second innings on Sunday. ECB Director of Cricket Andrew Strauss has said that England's players must be smarter. Steve Smith admitted Australia used the episode to get under Bairstow's skin in Brisbane. "It was basically about trying to get Johnny off his game," he said. "And I think it worked with the way he got out. He got caught at third man playing a pretty ordinary stroke, to be fair. We were just trying to get in his head." Bairstow made a brief appearance to state that there had been no intent nor malice, but failed to explain precisely what he was supposed to have done. And with a Stokes nightmare so fresh in the memory, it was left to Strauss to calmly answer a flurry of awkward questions. "Johnny mentioned to me that he bumped Cameron Bancroft," he said. "That's a greeting thing that he does with his mates. He assured me there was no malice, no intent, no aggression. And although I'm somewhat surprised he would choose to do such a thing, I'm taking him at his word. As such, I don't think it would be appropriate for us to be launching disciplinary proceedings against him. I have clearly reminded him of his responsibilities as an England cricketer, and he has seen firsthand how, in an Ashes series with a lot of noise, attention and interest, small issues can become bigger. What might have been acceptable in the old days is no longer acceptable, and we as an England cricket team need to move along with that. I think the players need to be smarter. That's the reality. They are intelligent adults, and at times they are not using that intelligence in the right way. What might have been acceptable in the old days is no longer acceptable." Strauss said this is a distraction and one we could have done without. "In our preparation for the Ashes tour, we talked about making sure these distractions don't happen. So in that sense it is frustrating," but Strauss, who said he was satisfied Bairstow had not been inebriated, added that it wasn't practical to ban the players from touching alcohol during a 5-month tour. Asked whether he would remind them of the dangers of making physical contact with others, he replied, "This is the point, really. Something very innocent can be construed as completely different, given the context and environment we're operating in at the moment. And if that is not clear to the players right now, I don't know when it will be. These guys are not thugs. These are good, honest, hard-working cricketers who sacrifice a lot to play for England, and I will back them to the hilt because I know them, but the perception of them and the reality is different at the moment, and we've got to take steps to make sure that reality is what people perceive of the England cricket team, not something different." As England licked their wounds at the end of a game in which they competed on equal terms with Australia for almost 3 days, Root bristled at the timing of the revelation. England captain Joe Root was disappointed the incident came to light during the first test. "It's disappointing that it's given them an opportunity to bring something up," he said. "But it's come up the first day Australia have had a good day on the field, 4 weeks later. If it was a big deal it would have come out a lot earlier. You've got to be careful not to make a big deal out of something that's not there." Root, who described Bairstow's behaviour as joshing around and boyish, also played down comparisons with the punch David Warner threw at him in Birmingham's Walkabout Bar 4 years ago. It was lost on no one that it was Warner's sledge to Bairstow on Sunday. "You shouldn't headbutt our mates." That was picked up by the stump mic and set the ball rolling. As ever, he has been at the heart of the mischief. Root said, I can see why people would see that on the surface from how blown out of proportion it's been. But they're two very different incidents. We've got to be very careful we don't fall into that trap that the two incidents were the same, because they're definitely not. Behind the scenes, England coach Trevor Bayliss was fuming following the revelations it wasn't the greeting of choice that I was expecting, the Australian opening batsman joked, but it was the Australians who emerged well ahead as the details of the evening in Perth dribbled out. Asked whether Bairstow had indeed butted Bancroft, Bayliss floundered briefly, before concluding, I think there was some contact but obviously not a headbutt. There's a big difference. Behind the scenes, the England coach was fuming. Bancroft, who had just made an unbeaten 82 on his Test debut to ease Australia past their fourth innings target of 170, was better placed to say exactly what had occurred. I can remember it very clearly, he said. We'd just won a Shield game for Western Australia, and that coincided with the English team arriving in Perth for the tour game. It was very friendly mingling the whole night. Some of the players knew some of the English players, and as the night progressed, it was great to be able to meet some of those guys. I got into a very amicable conversation with Johnny, and he just greeted me with a headbutt kind of thing. I was expecting a handshake. It wasn't the greeting of choice that I was expecting. There was certainly no malice in his action. And we continued having a very good conversation for the rest of the evening. As all of Australia laughed along, England were left wondering how they were going to get their tour back on track. If they lose in Adelaide, the talk here will turn to another whitewash, with all the recriminations and resignations that go with it.